Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to the afterWord podcast, episode 1. Or I guess we should call this 1.5 as our first recording got corrupted almost 3 months ago. Derek had no video and my mic sounded terrible. So now we're here trying to utilize our Streamlabs setups to do this instead of Squadcast. So hopefully this turns out okay. I guess we won't know until the hour-long podcast is over. But how are you doing today, Derek? How's your day going?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, it's the middle of the workday. Got some time off to record some stuff. There's a lot of new game announcements today and a lot of RTSs coming up, so I'm excited to talk about those.
You're right. We have a pretty packed show because of that. So we already had the idea of doing this podcast while I was home. So it kind of just coincided perfectly with the announcement of the new RTS game, Zero Space. So our first impressions of it, it's definitely different, but it looks like it has a lot of promising features to it. I know that they just launched their um, fundraising campaign a couple hours ago, and they're already at like $92,000, which is pretty crazy. So it's popping off pretty good. It's good to see. But what's your first impressions of it so far?
Oh, so going right into Zero Space, I think it has a StarCraft look to it, which I really
Mm,
like, but
it
it's
does.
definitely different from StarCraft. There's a lot of new style mechanics mixed
Hmm.
in from some like other strategy genres, which I think is very interesting.
Right.
Um, and we could talk about some of those one by one, but
Yeah, there's just so
overall, the
much to
game
talk
is
about.
pretty far along from what I can tell.
It is. And the thing I like about it too, because they have the fundraiser campaign already launched, but they have a lot of information already available. So as everyone knows, we're very eager and excited for Stormgate. We're going to go pretty big into that game when it launches, but there's still like a lot of unknown with that game. Like we don't really know the full level of their in depth for the game mechanics, what they're going to do with even the third unreleased race yet, what that's going to look like as a competitive side. So with Zero Space here, they've actually like released a lot of the core game mechanics, what's going to separate it apart. So far, like with the actual first impressions, it looks like one, it's going to be really hard to balance as a competitive game, but that we'll get into later. But the campaign looks unreal. Like it's a very
Yeah.
expansive campaign. It's one of those story driven ones where it has like an RPG feel to it in an RTS. So the decisions you make kind of defies how you play out the rest of the story mode. There's a lot of cooperative aspects to the story mode as well. There's something they're calling, what did they call that here? So I'm looking at website as we talk about this. I have the notes set up, but where is that? The Galactic Warfare. So if you guys are interested, we'll have the link to the Kickstarter down below to check this all out. But Galactic Warfare takes your role beyond a traditional commander, join guilds, form alliances, and partake in a galactic-sized tug of war that is set on a persistent galaxy map that hosts thousands of players. Conquer space stations, planets, and more in either co-op or competitive style battles. So that sounds to me like Eve Online extrapolated into an RTS game. That's like a constant PvP battle for planets and resources, which, if that's the case, that is going to be unbelievable and a big strain on your computer if you're trying to run that at any high sort of FPS. But what's your first thoughts on that?
I think it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier. We both had the same thought that it kind of reminds us of something like Eve Online or something.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's really cool we're out there taking with like a big, expensive battleground, which could focus more on like communities and guilds and stuff.
Right.
Um, from an RTS perspective, I think so. This game has like draft system. It's not just you pick a faction; you also pick like a mercenary faction as well as a hero
Yeah.
before the game even starts, which kind of has some like MOBA-esque battle planning before the game actually starts.
Yeah,
So
it feels kind of like StarCraft 2, Warcraft 3, and Dota had a love child in the RTS space that also takes a lot from the RPG sort of genre as well. So I
yeah,
think coming into
definitely.
this, because when we were talking earlier, you and I first talk about the competitive esports side of thing as an RTS game, because that's like our background and what we're kind of looking towards. But I think you have to approach this game in a very different sort of aspect, because if this galactic warfare takes off, that itself could be a game defining feature that people play specifically for this galactic warfare rather than it being like a competitive esport. Um, but like you said, with all those factions available, right? Because yeah, like you said, there's 4 factions, and then there's like 6 mercenary factions and 15 champions, and all this different sort of tech tree building alongside it as well. It adds for like a crazy diverse set of gameplay. I know they're looking to have like a zero meta. Every game feels completely different than the one before that, which is going to add just so much depth to it. I think as a more casual play this game for fun, it's going to be, from the looks of it, it's going to be like a really fun game just from the offset of it.
Yeah, I love the idea of the how every game is like different, because that's what I really love about Dota is just the creativity with Dota and
Right.
how every time I play, I feel like I had a different experience. Where StarCraft almost the game is so far along and not much has changed, so every game feels like kind of the same.
Yeah,
Um,
there's very specific laid out path. When someone has build order X versus build order Y, you have a very specific way to play that out because it's so theory crafted and played out that everyone knows the best outcome for each situation. So it does kind of start to feel like the same thing over and over and over again. The only real variance is like, okay, PVZ six pulled me, and now we change it up a little bit from there. But as long as you know what your opponent's doing, you have like the rest of the game mapped out from minute 1 to minute 35.
Definitely. Um,
But
but yeah, I think from like a so looking at this game, it's definitely very complex as far as
mm,
the variability of matches. I don't know what the ultimate goal of this game is going to be, whether it's an esport or like a more casual strategy game, like something like Eve Online or
right.
mixed with RTS or something. Um, it has big time StarCraft pros that are actually working on the game. So like
Yeah.
Cats, Scarlet, Pig, and some others were actually, I believe they're actually like leads on this project. So
Yeah, I believe Katz
um,
is like the actual gameplay or like experience lead. He did one of the videos in here, but can't find it at the moment.
I like how they
Um,
gave us so much information.
so much. Like this took me an hour to go through all of it and just trying to really rein in my thoughts on it all, which is great because you have a chance to actually think about it in the long term. Like I said, with Stormgate, we don't really have that quite yet. You and I unfortunately don't have the alpha keys to jump in and play yet. So it's all hearsay. It's still hush hush because the NDAs
Yeah,
and stuff. But they have a lot of information on this. So, alongside all that information, because you and I were both former professional StarCraft 2 players, so we always look at things as an esport first kind of operation. Um, I feel like this game is going to be a nightmare to balance in a competitive sense, just because there's so much going on. Like it's going to be cool to see pro players take certain things and extrapolate across that, but at the same time too, when we have this much variety, you're going to always have something that's the most powerful. And then if it's too powerful, it's going to get nerfed and then change up the whole meta, which adds a different layer of uniqueness to it. But it's also going to be something that is going to be just so hard to balance. How do you feel about that?
Um, yeah, I definitely think so. With 4 factions at least in this game, that's going to be a balance nightmare in itself. And then you
Yep.
add the mercenary factions and the heroes, which is going to
Yep.
add an insane amount of variability. But I think it's extremely cool if it's like a more casual co-op campaign driven type of game. It'll be
Yeah.
extremely interesting. From an esport, I'm not sure exactly how it'll work. One thing that they could do to like maybe keep it balanced, just kind of like the Dota method, is yeah, there's going to be some overpowered stuff in the game, but there's enough overpowered stuff where each person gets a choice at it,
Mhm.
as well as if they add like bans to the drafting phase where I can ban this mercenary faction or this hero, whatever, it could kind of add to the balance. I'm wondering if they'll take a route like that. I think that could help a little bit, like a ban system.
Right. Yeah, like you said too, because being able to just outright ban the things that are overpowered is going to make people have to learn how to play the game as a whole, not just playing the game for whatever is most powerful, because that's not going to have the chance to get played as often, right? Um, but yeah, overall, I think as a more like casual competitive game, I think there's going to be a lot of fun to be had in this game. There's just so much to do by the looks of it. Every game is going to be different. You have the chance to try out different mercenaries and heroes, and they have like a talent tree, it looks like, for each game as well. Whether that's something you are predisposed to beforehand and you can kind of choose it, or how that goes. But it opens up a lot of possibilities with how they're laying out the groundwork. And like they said in their Kickstarter, that it's a pretty big undertaking that they're looking to accomplish here, and hopefully they're able to rein it in or manage all of it as they move things forward, right? Because you don't really want them to have these big, expansive kind of dreams and then get into it, launch the game, and realize, man, we are overwhelmed with how much work has to be put into the upkeep of balancing and making this game not just fun but also competitive. So I think trying to find where they want to go with it and lean in on that is going to be important, because I think from a casual and competitive standpoint, it's going to be hard to have a great balance where it's great for pro players and great for casuals without that balance getting thrown out by balancing the game depending on where you find your information on what's broken and what's not.
For sure, definitely. And regardless if this game is competitive or not, it looks like something I would play the campaign. Like it looks
Absolutely.
like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I would love for it to be competitive because I would like to see. We were talking about this before. Some competition in the RTS esports
Yeah.
space. Because like what were you saying about Blizzard? I mean,
Well, because
StarCraft was the only RTS.
it was
The only
the only
popular
RTS game. So when we started with StarCraft 2, they were really had free reign to do whatever it is that they wanted to do, right? There's no competition to keep them in check or anything like that. So being able to have a competitor in the space is going to be really important for them to make sure that they can't just run away and do whatever they want, because now there's an option of like, okay, well, we don't like this decision you're making. We're going to go play this, Zero Space, or we're going to go play Stormgate, either or, depending on how that works. So you have to be a lot more engaged with the community to make sure that you're going to retain your players across the board. Alongside that too, I think just having more RTS in the space is just huge, because the genre since StarCraft 2 has not been explored in the past like 10 years. Like StarCraft 2 came out, it did very well. Blizzard unfortunately killed it, and then since then there's been nothing. Like I think Age of Empires remaster, and then StarCraft 2 or StarCraft Brood War and Warcraft 3 remastered, but those also didn't do much beyond flopping. So I really do think having more RTS in the space is going to be huge for esports, because right now, like, what do we have? It's first person shooters across the board. Like everything is a first person shooter. You have Fortnite, which was big, the battle royale thing. Apex. You have Counter Strike. You have Valorant. The League of Legends is obviously up there. Dota's still doing good, but it's not very not a lot of variety in it. Either MOBA or first person shooter. And if you're not competing in those, then you're not really competing in esports.
For sure, yeah. And RTS, like StarCraft's still the only competitive RTS that's still has much funding.
Right. And it's pretty down there right now as well. I think
it's on life support. The developer doesn't
Yeah.
support the game at all. There's still a huge following. It's crazy, like the show out for like these dream hacks and stuff. They
Yeah.
don't have enough seats. It's at every dream hack, whether or not it's the main game, it's going to be the most audience. So
Right.
there's a demand for the RTS genre, and these developers realize that.
Yeah.
So I think that's why there's a resurgence in the genre. But also, did you see that $400,000 StarCraft 2 tournament?
Yeah, what was that? Players 8 or something like that? What was it called?
Yeah, the Gamers
Yeah.
8 tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a lot of, I mean, from a StarCraft perspective, everyone was watching that. There's a lot of viewership, huge payouts. It shows that the community is still there.
Right.
The pros that are still playing are still making a career out of it.
Yep.
There's still people who are interested in the game. It's just that the developer doesn't support it.
Right. Do you think
so
that changes with the acquisition of Activision to Microsoft?
That's a good question. So Microsoft, it's one of the biggest corporate acquisitions in history.
Yeah.
As far as cost. So they're not going to buy out the company and then let all of the IP die.
Right.
That would be a horrible business decision.
Absolutely.
So there's
buying the
going
company
to be
for the
something
IPs.
StarCraft for sure.
Yep.
There was some rumors and leaks from some reporter or whatever about development. I don't know if any of it's true, but
Yeah.
I will tell you that they're going to make something. They're not going to spend that much money.
Right.
Whether or not it's an RTS or a phone game. I have no idea, but
Yeah,
they'll try to keep their IP alive, to make use of their investment.
absolutely. Because I mean, when you look at it, Activision Blizzard has some of the biggest titles on the planet, right? They have like Call of Duty, they have StarCraft, World of Warcraft. They have all these titles that they can
Candy
run
Crush.
with. They have Candy Crush. I didn't know that. Yeah, that's huge. I hope they turn that
Yeah.
into esport. Love me some Candy Crush. I'm missing a bunch on that too, right? Because I mean, Activision has so many big titles. They're just too money hungry now, unfortunately. And I'm not saying Microsoft won't be money hungry, but I think they're a little bit better than Activision will be. Because
Oh,
if you
for
look
sure.
at something like Halo, right? That game has, in its prime, was a massive title, and it still is. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, 343 they didn't really deliver with Halo Infinite. It didn't get the same sort of recognition they're hoping it would. But Microsoft has kind of stuck with that title for a long time. I know
Yeah.
that they don't really own the development rights to it or anything anymore. They still own the IP. So keeping that alive and running for that long gives us hope that they can grab a game like StarCraft, launch StarCraft 3, and give it the support that it needs. Because we're also way further along in the understanding of esports as well. Like Blizzard launched StarCraft 2, it was the biggest esport ever hit the market. It kickstarted esports into the limelight, and then League of Legends grabbed and ran with it. But then they just kind of let it do its thing and die into the ground without giving it the
Yeah.
support it needed, which is unfortunate. But I think 10, 12 years down the road, now we have way more understanding of what needs to be done, and Microsoft has the money and desire to do that. So I hope that really does work out in the long run. Because end of the day, I'm excited, really excited, especially for Stormgate, because that's the competitive genre that we're moving into. I think Zero Space is going to be really fun. Don't know what that's going to look like on the esports side of things, but both these games, even if they do fantastically well, I think the day StarCraft 3 launches is the day both these games are going to have to really keep it
They're gonna have to
competitive
compete.
and compete hard too. I don't know if you'd be able to retain that many players from StarCraft 3. That title is just too big. Unless they absolutely destroy the title with StarCraft 3, that's going to be something that's hard to match.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see the future of RTS. There's been a lull in RTS releases for like a decade, so
Yep.
we're
Now
about
we
to
got
get
two.
a bunch at once.
Yeah, which is great.
There's also Immortal. I don't know if you saw that game,
No.
but that game is in alpha or just had open alpha or open beta or something last week.
Oh, really?
So,
I'm going to Google it right now. What's it
um,
called?
It's a little bit different, but it's called Immortal Gates of Pyre.
I think. Oh, Gates of Fire. Okay, I think I have heard of it. We'll check this out after the podcast is done. But RTS, I think that's what people are starting to realize too, especially these developers, is that the competition in the first-person shooter and the survival games like Apex and what are those called? The battle royales.
Battle Royales.
Yeah, like that's so popular, and a lot of games have done well with it. But now there's too much competition on the market to compete with.
Saturated.
They've got to find something, right? Like the MMO category is still dominated by World of Warcraft, and MMOs are a big undertaking and a hard thing to get right. You're not really going to do a first-person shooter that's going to compete. So getting into the RTS standpoint, I think there's a big niche and a big opening that, if filled correctly, is going to be beneficial to whoever is.
There's a
able to do it
huge
properly.
opening. I mean, there's so many
Massive.
fans and players that
Yeah.
are older and have money now.
That's it.
And they're longing for a StarCraft replacement. I mean, like if there's a StarCraft replacement, I would dedicate like all of my free time to it.
Oh yeah. Me too.
So whatever can accomplish the task successfully is going to be the next game I dedicate all my time to.
Yeah, and owners of Aftermath as well, we know that we're going to be dedicating a lot of our resources into Stormgate. We already have big plans for launching tournaments and hiring out or bringing on players, sending them to tournaments. Like we're putting all of our eggs in the Stormgate basket when it launches, because we know what the esports space looks like with the RTS at the top. StarCraft 2, there's no comparing the landscape of esports from then compared to now. I think having a single player game like that is highly competitive, you just can't compete with how good that is for the ecosystem of esports.
For sure. Yeah, 1v1 is it's something special, because in these 5v5 esports that dominate the market, you need a team of 5 with same schedules, which essentially means that they need to be full time. The cost of supporting that much hardware and teams and a LAN is like not really
hard.
doable. So you really only have a tier 1 scene. That's at a huge money loss for most games probably.
Yeah,
But for things like StarCraft, you can have a 1v, it's one player is all that's needed for,
right.
like, you're yourself. So you can have a tournament. If you have 10 computers, you can have 10 people playing at the same time, 5 matches going on. You can much easier hold a bigger tournament. So that really fuels like a tier 2 and tier 3 scene at all
Absolutely.
these different LAN centers, LAN cafes, just everywhere.
Yeah,
And we haven't had a good 1v1 game like that has a tier 1 scene and a tier 2 scene at the same time in a long time,
absolutely.
since StarCraft basically.
You're right. Because even when
These
you look
fighting
at,
games don't really count. They're pretty much just tier 2.
you're right. Yeah, fighting games is a niche community of itself, and that's a harder, smaller genre in my opinion. And like you said, even with something like Fortnite, technically Fortnite had a 1 versus 1 section to it, but you still need 100 people in the lobby to make that happen. So these LANs
Yeah.
were impossible to hold, right? I do really miss the days when we'd have local LAN events. You'd have the same 30, 40 people show up from the same city you're in, and you got to know people in the city. You got to build a name for yourself in a space, and there's a direct line from being a tier 2 player to being a pro player in StarCraft. Like if you look at a game like Valorant right now, you got to like slog your way through the tier 2 space, and your teammates are always leaving and falling apart. You don't really have that breakout performance, and then you finally have to get recognized by a tier 1 team because there's no opportunities for a team like Aftermath to upset FaZe in some online qualifier
Yeah.
like there was this time last year, right? So a game like StarCraft, or an RTS in general, when Stormgate comes out, it's going to be huge for people's progression to being a pro because you individually can get good. Like you said, you don't have
Right.
to wait on 5 players for their scheduling. You don't have to worry about them playing good that day in a tournament. You don't have to worry about getting the proper eyes on you. If you are grinding it out on your own and playing 12 hours a day, getting 60 games in a day, and then you have your breakout performance leading up to like an MLG event or something, which used to happen all the time, you
Yeah.
get picked up the next day by a pro team. We've seen that happen all the time back in the day. Some
It's
player would,
amazing.
but
Yeah, oh, I was just saying, yeah, it's amazing. Like, we haven't had that.
no,
Like you're saying, in the past, like Theory, me, who's a student in college, I don't have time to practice with 4 other players in an esport. I have to do I have time to do things on my own. So if I want to go pro in a game, something like StarCraft was perfect. I win
yeah,
a bunch of local LANs. I get my name on the map. I eventually get picked up by FXO, like an actual pro team.
yeah,
And it was possible for me to do that as an individual. But if I were to try to, I'm good at Dota also, but I would have to find a team to play with. There's the whole 5-player mechanic, like same schedule. There's no good farming league. I'm never going to get noticed by a pro team to get on a pro team in Dota.
yep. And it's just as hard for an esports organization too to thrive in that space. Like we've tried before in the past, right? Like we have our Dota team and we compete in leagues, and it's really hard to make that jump from tier 3 to tier 2 and then beyond that as well. Like Valorant, love Valorant. We spent a lot of money keeping our teams in the tier 2 space, right? Through the Knights tournaments and everything going on with the monthlies. But it just, the cost and return on investment was way too much. We were spending like $500 almost a month for tournament registration, right? And there's no way you're getting that back, even if they
Yeah.
take first place in a tournament. We didn't take any money back
Yeah.
from them, right? So
And yeah, you usually don't take cut from your players unless there's some
unless they're
huge
salaried,
contract deal involved. Yeah.
that's it. Like if we were giving them salary, guaranteeing them like $1,000 a month each, yeah, we'd take probably like 20, 30, 40% of their tournament winnings, right? Because that's like the investment we make to make that money back. They get security plus the bonus of winning. We get a little bit kickback, blah, blah, blah. But when there's no salaries involved and the best support we can do is give them tournament registrations, and yeah, they deserve to keep every penny, right? That's a loss we take as an organization to build our brand. But when it comes down to when Stormgate is released, and we only need to pick up say 2 really good players, right? You can go from
Yeah.
2 to 15. Like FX Open had like I think we rostered at one point like 11
Yeah,
or
they
12
were
players.
just
Like
letting every NA pro onto it at one point.
yeah, it was crazy. Like we had every good player in North America on that team,
all
and
of
it
them,
didn't matter. Like it was crazy. Our team was massive, and there was a lot of talent, which was great for the ecosystem of it, right? But I mean, we only needed one player to do well. Like you send one player to a tournament because they're at that moment the best player on the team or qualify for something. That's a hell of a lot cheaper than having to send 5 players to a LAN event.
Yeah.
And people haven't seen what a LAN looks like when it's StarCraft 2. Like I remember the MLGs back in the day were made like the best fun you could have, right? Because you go down, you meet all the pro players, they had the pro player after parties, you just go out, hang out, and have the chance to actually meet people, right? Like you don't have to wait on those 5 other people or 4 other people to go compete. Like send yourself to an MLG and just go have fun. Like even if you're not competitive, go sign up for an MLG event. It's the best time of your life. I've never been more motivated to get better than my first MLG.
Definitely. You need to go to DreamHack with us sometime. I think DreamHack's better than MLG actually.
That's what you're saying. Yeah, I haven't been to a DreamHack yet. I should go because there's one in Montreal and Atlanta every year, and I should be going to at least one of them. I think this year, because this one comes in December, right? In Atlanta?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm working for that one. But
dang.
yeah,
I'll be there.
Maybe I'll try and take it off. We'll see how the winter's going for me.
Yeah. And StarCraft's turnout in Atlanta was insane last year. I don't know if I'm going to play this year. I haven't really been practicing StarCraft, but I'll definitely go to at least watch and see everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the closer Stormgate gets, the more I'm going to play StarCraft. Like I played a little bit yesterday, just trying to get back into the RTS sort of mindset. But as of right now, too, I'm not playing any StarCraft. It's just so much other stuff on the go to make it a priority. But getting back on track, so we've talked quite a bit on this new launch of ZeroSpace. Really excited for it. I'm excited to see where it goes. So I'm on their Kickstarter page now. They're at $96,000 already out of their $135,000. They just launched
50% since we started this podcast.
Like, yeah, it's crazy. Like minutes. I think so. I already pledged. I pledged the 165 US to get my early access alpha. So I pledged it so that the biggest reason there's a few like a travel bag and an art book and stuff, but I get early access, which is kind of what I'm looking for because I want to play this game as soon as possible. I'm not pointing fingers, but Stormgate really disappointed. He didn't give us any beta keys, but that's okay. But to see them already reaching $100,000, and I think they launched this campaign 5 hours ago. That's unbelievable for that kind of support. Considering their Twitter right now, they just launched all their socials today. Their Twitter has like 300 followers. Like it's crazy. Like
this was just announced a few hours ago.
It was, yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna check it right on Twitter. See.
But yeah, this just shows that there's a desire for RTS.
4 hours ago, and it's already almost at $100,000.
It's already reached its goal in just 4 hours, and it's going to be open for 30 days. So
yeah,
I'm definitely going to back it later too. I need to read through the different tiers and stuff.
Yeah, there's quite a few. You should get the $10,000 tier, because then you get to work with them and you get to leave your legacy. I think you get a unit named after you. Get a hero named after you.
Get a hero named? That would be cool.
Yeah, that would
Hopefully
be cool.
There would be a hero named Theory and it'd be OP.
That would be. But how mad would you be if you spend $10,000, right? And then your hero's OP, and then they nerf it into the ground. No, they nerfed it in the ground, never gets played again ever. People are like, oh, I fucking hate that champion.
That'd be hilarious.
We're never playing that one again. But
you said the 165 tier has a bag. I might go with that one.
Yeah, it comes with the bag. So let me read this. There's actually really good tiers with it. I think every tier they said comes with a copy of the game, no matter how much you donated within a tier. So mine was, you get like the travel bag, a hardcover art book, you get early alpha access, you get a few things. There's a bunch of in-game stuff as well when you actually get the game. I think you get all the DLCs, sticker pack, you get 4 legendary hero skins. Quite a few different things.
Cool.
Oh, my name in the credits, that's cool. And then I think that is a good choice because I'm going to play the game regardless. I want to get in there day one of closed alpha. It's the first alpha round coming later this December. So get myself in there and try to give the best support I can. Because like I said, we want to put our money where our mouth is, right? Like we are very big proponents of the RTS space. So when this comes up, it's like, all right, we got to do our part to help. So giving whatever money we can, plus give whatever amount of feedback and advice in the testing phase is going to be huge. Like we're hoping to do a Stormgate as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. Speaking of that, so Stormgate's coming out. That's a game that's been on our like lookout for the past year and a half now since we've first heard about it. We've been following this for a very, very long time. They just released their first set of alpha keys on the 7th, so about 10 days ago, and it's looking really good. I think the developers behind that game have all the right pieces of mindset involved to make a great game. We've been in contact with their head of esports, just talking about how we want to launch a tournament series right after launch of the game, or at least in the beta. And we've just been talking back and forth with him, and he's been incredibly helpful. They just seem to have a good staffing of people that are dedicated to esports. So I think Stormgate itself is going to be a very highly competitive game, which is what gets me excited. Like Zero Space looks like a fun game. I think that's something I'll really enjoy playing. I don't know what the one versus one competitive landscape will look like. It could do really well. Like I'm not counting it out or saying anything negative about it yet. It's way too early to decide. I think it's going to be a balancing nightmare, like I said, but it's too limiting to know right now, right? But as far as Stormgate's concerned, I think it coming out is going to be huge in the esports space, and I'm really looking forward to the development and eventual launch of that game, because I really can't wait just to sink my teeth into a new RTS and dedicate my life to it. I'm going to quit my job again and go pro in Stormgate. Not really,
That's the
but
dream.
yeah, I'm just
I might
kidding.
actually really, we'll see. But
You have the potential to.
yeah, I think it's very early for both games. This game, I think, right now it's more exciting from a campaign co-op
Yeah.
galaxy battle stage perspective,
New
whatever that
feature sort of
is.
aspect. Yeah,
Because they've also told us everything.
right.
From Stormgate, all I know is that launch trailer.
Yep.
Because
That's all there
we've
is out
been
there.
given.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm more excited from an esport perspective because Stormgate looks more like a traditional, simple RTS. Build
Yeah.
stuff with a faction, kill your opponent.
Yeah.
Which I like better from an esports perspective. When it comes to an esport, I like a game to be kind of simple. That way an audience can look at it that's never seen the game before and understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Like in Counter-Strike, Rudy Tooty point and shooty. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Watching League and Dota, it's a little bit more complex, but it makes sense. Like there's pushing from the bottom left of the map to the top right of the map.
Yeah.
StarCraft, you have militaries battling each other. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So Stormgate kind of had that feel from the launch cinematic, or not cinematic, but the 1v1 between Tilo and Monk.
Oh, right. Yeah. The
The
gameplay
game
footage.
made sense. Like you had little units that were very clear to distinguish apart from the two sides shooting each other. I've never played Stormgate, but I could tell what was going on in the fight. Like
Right.
mechs, marines, dogs attacking each other.
Yeah.
This new game, you can kind of tell, but there's a lot going on. Like it looks like it'll be a little bit more complex, which I think is more fun from a single player perspective. But from like a spectacle esport perspective, maybe a little hard.
Right.
To
Because you're right. If you have someone new,
excitement.
If someone like stumbles upon it during a big tournament, right? If this on the front page of Twitch, they're like, oh, let's check this game out, and they pop in, they're like, oh, okay, so it's like an RTS. I understand that, but then between two different games, the same races are being played, but then there's different mercenaries. You're like, oh wait, what do they have? The commanders versus the Grell or whatever. I just watched that same matchup, but why is everything completely 180 different now? Like this is so weird, right?
Yeah.
So I think it is going to be a little bit different, but at the same time too, it still has the same sort of bones where you have the armies versus the armies. You don't have to understand the intricate side of things, but at the same time, it could get confusing. But who knows? Like I said, it's too early to tell. I'm really excited to see what it looks like. My only worry about the game for Zero Space is it is almost a carbon copy, it seems, of StarCraft 2. Like if you look at the gameplay released, it's just Terran versus Zerg, and they have very identical units. Like they have Ultralisks, they have Marines, they have Zerglings, they have what looks like Brutalists or Broodlords. They have what do they got? The tanks, there's some Thors. You know, like all of it looks
too. Some little Mutalisks.
Yeah, that's it. So they have kind of worried about that. It's like I know in a game like RTS, it's really hard to get too creative without having overlapping games. I totally understand that, right? But being too much of a copy of StarCraft and Warcraft 3, because even the heroes, right? If you look at some of these heroes, they have like looks like a ghost versus a Naga back in the day, right? From Warcraft. If they do too much copying from other games, that might be distasteful to other people when you actually jump into it. If it just feels like a carbon copy reprint of an additional game. But same thing. We'll wait and see how that comes out, because like I said, I don't want to be too critical because it's still super early alpha. I don't think the first launch of alpha keys goes out until December. So a lot of time to work on things. Some of these could even be placeholder unit models for now while they flesh out the rest of it. But regardless, it does look
Yeah.
it looks good for the RTS scene coming up, which is
Yeah.
huge for us.
Cool. Yeah, the units do the carbon copy. I'm watching the Ghost versus Hydra. But you know,
Yeah.
if a game is StarCraft 2 with a different name and has developer support, I'll take it.
True.
I'll take it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah. 'Cause you're right. I mean, yeah, you can't do too much. Like I said, there's only so much you can do as far as new creative unit models. As long as they don't have the same carbon copy everything, then it'll be good. I think like I said, I already paid the money for the early alpha because I'm excited to just get in and get my feet wet, get my teeth sunk in and play it. But yeah, overall, it's gonna be a good time for RTS scene coming up.
I'm
But
excited.
you know, it's not a good time for the esports scene. Is Sentinels probably going out of business this year? You watched that earlier, eh?
I read some of the articles that were being posted between the chat we have with Michael.
Yeah.
When I saw those numbers in their I can't remember if it was like an earnings report or whatever that PF was.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to know that
Yeah.
this is not how you run a business. Like, what are you doing?
I'm actually in the process of fleshing out a YouTube video I'm doing about that very thing, about where I think they tried to go with it and where they went terribly wrong. You can tell that they wanted to push all the money into their IP and utilize their brand for the actual value, but that doesn't work when you're hemorrhaging money to the point where you can't even operate anymore, right? So
yeah, I mean, millions. I mean,
millions.
I couldn't believe it. It blew my mind. How do you even spend that much money?
They spent
I manage big budgets in my company to release a product, and I've never seen numbers that high. Yeah. And we actually have returns, so they don't have any.
No, they don't.
Return.
If you look at their numbers, so we'll put a link in the description of what we're talking about here too. So basically, Sentinels is coming out with a crowdfunding campaign. What they want to do, they want to sell off $337,000 of common stock at $3.15 a piece to try and fund, I think, $1.25 million, right? And that $1.25 million is just going to keep them limping along for 4 to 5 months. If they don't hit their goal, they're going to limp along for 2 to 3 months. So the crazy part about it is if you look at their actual balance statement, their cost analysis, it's unreal.
Even that's idiotic. That's idiotic. Because usually you kind of do more public offerings when you're doing well, because people want to own your brand. You don't do it when you're going out of
desperation.
Business. Yeah. I mean, that's idiotic. I mean, as an investor, like, oh yeah, I'm going to burn my money.
You are too.
I don't know. I think they're idiots.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work in the long run, only because they're going to sell off 330,000 shares of common stock, right? $3.15 a share is overpriced for what they're at currently now. I think the valuation of the company is $30 million.
Yeah, make it a penny stock. Like, who wants to buy this crap?
Yeah, but they need to make the money somehow. The thing is that anybody investing,
but they're not going to.
Yeah, but anyone investing has to realize that money they invest you're burning it. You're never going to get that back out. They even say for the first year you can't sell it unless it's someone either back to the company or somebody already within there that has shares. Like, you can't sell it. And as soon as they go and keep trying to build this brand forward and they bring in more investors, it's going to dilute that stock down to damn near nothing. It's going to be unreal how quickly that goes to zero.
Yeah, right? You can't sell it for a year. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. And I mean, they have perks. I mean, they have minimum values. I think $300 is the minimum you spend. And if you spend $500, you get a jersey. And like, it goes down the tier list. But like, that's confusing for me too, because if you're asking for support, you don't want to be spending money in return on part of that. Like, if you're going to get $500 from someone, why are you then in turn sending them a $65 jersey? Like, you need to be utilizing that, but for the growth. Like, people have to realize if you're investing in this, the burn of your money, but it's to support a team that you're a fan of, right? So getting a jersey in return, I get it. It incentivizes a bit, gives a little bit of, kickback to whoever does support them, but it's also taking money out of the pockets of the team that currently needs funding. They can't be just giving away stock for free, because that's a big expense that they had last year. So
I think some dumb slogan on the shirt, like I bought whatever Sentinel stock and all I got was this T-shirt or something.
Yeah, I burnt my money for this T-shirt. That's exactly what it's going to be. I feel bad for him, but you can also tell, like, I see the direction they're trying to go, right? Because they wanted to try and bring on Tens and Tarek and all these big name creators for a high price, and they wanted to build up the IP value of Sentinels into something that could be marketed better,
For
right?
sure.
So
I feel bad for the players and the fans.
yeah,
I don't really feel bad for the people running the business. I mean, come
no,
on, like
because if you go through
think a little bit.
their salaries too, they're all incredibly overpaid for what they're bringing in, right? Like a company, they raised $21 million in pre-seed funding, right? So that was back in 2020 they did that, and over the past 3 years, they've spent all of it, $21 million, and their average revenue over the past couple of years is like $1.2 million a year, but they spent I think $10 million in 2022, and they brought back in 1.9. That's unreal. Like, obviously, you want to, when you're growing a business like that, you want to operate at a loss, especially when you have a $21 million nest egg of investor money to sit behind, because you don't want to show profits as a small business. I totally understand that. But when you're hemorrhaging money that much, like you spent $8.5 million and nothing to show for it, where did that
Yeah.
go? It's unbelievable they couldn't bring that closer to like maybe a million. If you spent like $1.5 million, if you're negative $1.5 million a year, that's understandable, right? Because you can extrapolate that over 20 years and still be in business, right? But when you're go through 21 million in 3 years, and now you're begging your community to keep you afloat, that's not a business model that's going to last more than 4 to 5 months. Like, I don't see them operating beyond Christmas. Like, I don't think they're going to make it into the new year, because the other plan they wanted to do was sell off some of their bigger expenses, which means probably cutting Tarek, probably cutting their Valorant team because they have tens who's expensive. And then that's going to damage the brand overall. Like, if you get rid of the two people that really build up and maintain the name of your brand, where do you go from there, right? You have to spend money somehow. I think they've really boxed themselves into a corner, and there's no real way of getting out. They have to beg for money. They have to sign some big brand deals, because that's another thing they're not doing. They haven't monetized the people they have with them. They have a huge social media following, but they're not slapping. If you look at their jerseys, there's not a single sponsor on any of their clothing. There's not a single sponsor anywhere. There's no one that they're trying to advertise for. But when you're one of the largest esports teams in North America, you need to be branding and slapping advertising everywhere. If they would have done that earlier on, if they would have had one big sponsor, if they would have reached out to Coca-Cola and be like, here, man, here's a front and center sponsorship, give us $20 million, right? That's a bit overkill. They wouldn't get that much, but still, they could bring in a lot more money. And like I said, extrapolate that $21 million they had in pre-seed funding over a hell of a lot longer of a period, not just 3 years, because they're operating right now at a $695,000 a month burn rate for what they're spending a month. And they're only bringing in $1.2 million a year in revenue. That's unreal. So they're spending their yearly revenue in 2 months, and then they're fully in the negative for the rest of the year.
Jeez.
Yeah, so I don't understand how they're going to come back from that. I think they're going to be another esports Goliath that sadly falls apart. But in my perspective, it's something that kind of needs to happen. Like, I don't want to see esports hurting, but at the same time too, it's been too long of a lot of people having a lot of money without the proper know-how of how to properly spend it. And
Yeah,
I think we need to get those people out of the space, and we need to rein in expectations of what the value of esports is and where the money's coming from.
That's a very good point.
Because it trickles down to tier 2. Like, even these
Yeah.
Valorant teams, you have these free agent Valorant teams that haven't really won anything. They don't have any massive social media following. They're good, right? They're a competitive team in what they're competing in, but there's no value in that. Their worth is $0, but they want to come into a team getting $500 a month salary. It's like, where's that value? Like, my reply to that nowadays is whenever Aftermath wants to pick up a team that wants salary, it's like, hey, I'll give you 100% of the money you bring in. Like, oh, well, how do we do that? Like, exactly. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't have any value yet. Like, you got to build more. You got to build with the brand and get into the marketing side of things. They're just, the expectations in the esports space right now is way too high. And that needs to get shot back down, which is why an RTS is going to be huge for that.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, the selfish RTS player in me, I'm glad this is happening in another scene.
Right.
It reminds me kind of like when all the sponsors pulled out of StarCraft because of all these scandals, the cheating and match fixing scandals. It kind of like killed the game from a sponsorship perspective, and then developer pulls out kind of hastily, hastily. Hopefully we don't see Valorant fall apart just because of one team, but at least it's the example is being shown in that space and not in RTS space. So hopefully when we're going into the RTS space, all these orgs team sponsors have learned their lessons.
Yeah. Yeah, I think teams also need to do better about delivering for their sponsors. Like, there's a lot of companies out there that are probably never going to invest in esports again because they've been burned so hard. You have
Yeah,
these
like
teams come
Nvidia.
out.
They
Yeah, they'll
got
never be back.
they got
It's just too
wrecked
bad.
by a view botters, and they just picked random high viewer streams. They weren't even legitimate players. They pull out of StarCraft completely. I mean,
Yeah.
these bad decisions are setting a bad taste for their
Yep.
sponsors.
And that's why we need people that are not of that mentality in the space anymore.
like Aftermath Esports.
Yeah. You know what I could have done if they gave me 21 million fucking dollars? We'd be set for life,
I
and we
know.
would actually grow. We wouldn't be trying
This
to
man
pick
turns everything to gold.
try.
Everything
Well,
he touches.
Yeah, because I'm not egotistical and
Yeah.
I'm not
I mean,
impatient.
use some logic when
Just
you're
a
making
little
your
bit.
business decisions. Just a little, yeah. Just a
Just
little.
just a little bit. That's all we need. We just need like this much logic behind what you're trying to do here, and not try to extrapolate over 5 years with dreams that are just not obtainable. Like, they had the numbers in front of their faces, and they continued to burn through money like crazy, absolutely crazy. So I don't like.
Insane.
It sucks to see him go. I don't feel bad for him in the slightest. So I'm not gonna lie to you. After going through that white paper, realizing this is 100% on them, they are going to have a lot of money lost within this. So that's more investor money pulled out of esports. Luckily, they didn't do a whole lot with advertising through sponsors, so I don't think that's going to affect branding moving forward. But it's going to make future investors very wary about it, because we've had a few big organizations pull out and go out of business lately. And I think that's simply because of irresponsible spending. But
Definitely.
that'll change. I think it has to. The esports bubble has to pop. I think it's gotten way too inflated. I'm personally excited for it. It sucks because people are going to lose their jobs, right? Esports teams are falling apart and they're going bankrupt and people's dreams are dying, and that's not fun. Like, I hate seeing that, because I'm very passionate about esports and want to create a very prosperous ecosystem within it. But I think the people that are overzealous and over egotistical have to have this
Yeah,
burn.
we can't have them killing the scene repeatedly.
Yeah, that's it, because it affects
we need
us
to cycle in
downhill.
better.
Yep.
A lot more logical owners.
Yep. Which will happen. It'll continue to happen. It'll be a good cycle. And I think people need to experience this, and we have to start treating this like an actual business space, not some sort of monopoly playland, which it seems to have become over the past couple of years. There's only a handful of teams that can actually afford to spend the money they are. Everybody else is delusional. But I think next couple of years of esports is going to be hard, but on the other side of it, it's going to break through and be better than it ever has been, just because it'll be more mature. I think people are going to have a lot more security within it. They'll be smarter with their spending, smarter with how much they price things out for. And overall, it's going to be something that's here to last. Like, esports is not going anywhere. I see it being one of the biggest entertainment industries on the planet in the next 10 years, but it has to go through some growing pains right now first.
For sure. So to move on to the next topic, since we've talked about running esports orgs and everything, I want to talk about Aftermath and its plans for Stormgate a bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's something you and I talk about all the
That's
time.
my favorite thing to talk about.
I know. We talk about it all the time. It's great. Yeah. Like, I think it comes without saying, both you and I come from professional StarCraft 2 backgrounds, right? So we are obviously excited for Stormgate. And I think we come with a unique approach that we both competed and were a part of that landscape. So that honestly, like, a lot of people haven't been able to. They weren't around when StarCraft was a thing. They don't know what that esports landscape looks like. So we have plans for tournaments right after launch that are going to be very unique. It was common practice back in StarCraft 2, but it's not something that's been seen ever since. So once it launches, we're going to keep it a secret, because I don't want people stealing our ideas and everything. But I think Aftermath going into Stormgate will be a top tier 1 organization that is synonymous with the game genre. Like I said, we're already working alongside Stormgate to become, hopefully, partnered within their actual ecosystem of tournaments. But at the very least, we're going to be launching big tournaments, running big tournaments. We're going to be investing a lot into player talent, streamers. We're going to be picking up staff. Like, we're going all in. We're investing every spare penny we have, both company and personally, into Stormgate, because we believe in it that much. And I think that is where we bring ourselves into the limelight, into that tier 1 space we've been working so hard to get into. So yeah, we have a lot of really big plans when Stormgate launches.
Yeah, I'm super hyped. And we already, so I don't know how many players we're gonna get ultimately. I don't want it to be as big as FXO.
No, that's yeah. I want it to
It's definitely gonna
be
be ran way better than FXO. FXO was
absolutely.
ran horribly, by the way.
horribly. That's why we started Aftermath, is because it
Yeah.
was ran so terribly. I was like, we need to do something better.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're not having no 15 players, so it'll probably be like
Yeah.
4 to 8, and we're just gonna aim for quality.
We already have 4 people committed to the.
We do. You're right. We
Committed
actually
to
have a great
Aftermath.
team already. Like
Yeah,
the people we already
we're
have.
actually hella solid.
Yeah, already, and it hasn't even launched yet.
Yep.
It's gonna only
do
get
we,
better,
do we
too.
want to talk about our players? Who we have?
Yeah, because we already have them announced. They haven't left or anything.
Yeah,
since,
yeah. I
so,
mean, we've had him since StarCraft, so.
yeah.
But I'll introduce our first one. He's a former professional StarCraft player and owner of Aftermath Esports, who trained full time in Poland to become the best pro he could be. Aftermath kaRmy.
Woo! I'm gonna be really washed at Stormgate, so I will probably be a player manager at best, but I'm definitely going to be creating a lot of content around the game and still competing. I'll still play and try to be best rank I can. I'm 30 years old now, man. I'm old as fuck.
Damn, you're old as fuck.
I'm
What
old
the
as
hell?
balls. I know.
Damn.
Yeah. So
Don't tell them my age.
I'm gonna be a tier 2 backup bench player. But other than that, yeah, we'll be definitely taking that game full time seriously. Like I said, I have a lot of content plans. This whole podcast we have, the afterward, something we're going to be devoting entirely to Stormgate. We're going to have a weekly podcast coming up for nothing but Stormgate news and things coming up with that. In the moment, it's kind of like a esports in general kind of podcast, but that's going to transition very quickly once it's a bit more fluid with information.
Oh,
But
cool. So this will be the one we do Stormgate on. That's exciting.
yeah, so like right now we have the freedom to talk about esports in general, but once Stormgate gets close to launch and we have stuff we can talk about on a weekly basis, it'll be a strictly Stormgate podcast. And we're going to be the number one
exciting.
authorities in Stormgate. So introduce the next player, another owner of Aftermath.
You want me to introduce?
Actually, I'll introduce you. 'Cause it's yourself. Yeah. Well, I already.
All right, let me hear.
introduced
What do you have to say about me?
He was my prodigy. He was my undertaking. I trained him and taught him everything he knew from way back in the day. He is a fellow Protoss player like myself and the co-owner, co-founder of Aftermath Esports. It's Theory. I'm just kidding about all that part too. Theory taught me all I knew, and I've only beaten him like twice in my entire life.
Yeah. Oh my god, I can't believe it was a decade ago now.
Now it's been forever.
But yeah, I'll be, I guess, kind of managing Aftermath Esports Stormgate side, but I'm gonna be playing too.
Absolutely.
I'm still good at StarCraft. I'm still,
You're still top
ranked
GM.
like 50 on Korea, top 30 on NA. So I mean, we're fresh. We're still ready to play.
And that's you like not even really playing. That's just you
Yeah,
being
not
good
even.
at,
I'm barely playing, and I'm
Yeah.
still high MMR.
yeah, when
I'm
you
playing
actually
Dota.
take it
I'm immortal
serious.
in Dota also. That's where most of my time goes.
Yeah, Mortal and Dota. It's crazy. And you're like one rank away from being global elite in Counter-Strike,
Yeah,
which is crazy. So you just pick up video games.
we're
and
spread
you're like,
thin
I'm
right
good.
now. But
Yeah.
Stormgate, everything is Stormgate. All those other
Yeah.
games are.
I'm deleting every other game on my computer.
Yeah.
Everything's getting deleted. All right. Go ahead and announce our next 2 players.
Okay, so our next one, who is, I want to say he was the first esports player picked up by Aftermath,
Yeah,
aside from
outside
like
of-
ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's Albino.
He's been with
He
us
is-
forever.
He's 10 years younger than us, so he's very young still, with a lot of potential.
Yep.
I think he's 20.
Yeah, because you got Grandmaster in StarCraft like 6 months when you picked it up, which is
Yeah,
impressive.
he was very young. He was still like early in high school when he got Grandmaster.
Yeah.
So he's extremely young Grandmaster Zerg player with a lot of potential, trained by No Regret, practiced hundreds of games versus me, Theory. He's also immortal in Dota at like a semi-pro level. So, I mean, he's got an insane amount of talent. And this man is like, he's passionate about becoming the best Stormgate player. Like,
Yeah.
if he
puts his mind to it,
believe
he's
he
going to
can-
be insane.
Yeah, he's going to be insane.
Because by the time
and-
the game fully launches, he'll be like, what, 21 and a half? Like, it's going to be perfect timing for him. He's going to have 4 years being just in his peak age for being a RTS player. And he's going to have all the support behind him, too, from day one. Like, he's not going to have to try and grind it up and meet people. It's like he already has we're already really well connected in that StarCraft 2 space. Like the people we know out of that game is actually kind of unreal. So when we actually launch the game, we'll pick up a lot of players that have insane potential and coach them to be best players. We'll be able to
For sure.
spit out talent like crazy when that game launches.
I'm excited, and I'm glad that Albino's like he's dedicated to Aftermath. We're all pretty loyal to Aftermath. I mean,
They've been around
I
forever.
don't think any of us would take a bigger offer. We're so closely connected, and we like playing with each other.
Yeah.
Albino is going to be insane. We're lucky to have him. I can't wait to see what he
100%.
can do. And then our last player is Volts, who we picked up as our last StarCraft player, but StarCraft was already kind of dying. Like WCS had just killed itself and switched over to ESL. We unfortunately kind of weren't able to give Volts very good support in StarCraft, but we are going to give him great support in Stormgate.
Yeah, we got into StarCraft. That was the first game we launched with, and then after that, with Aftermath, we just kind of knew that we had to go above and beyond that. StarCraft was our home, so like a good place to start, but that quickly transitioned. So unfortunately, business perspective had to drop StarCraft in a sense. But once Stormgate comes out, like we're already planning big support for it now anyway. So all the players we pick up are going to be incredibly well taken care of.
For sure. And Volts, some people may know him better as Idrilling when he played in WCS, but I think he's the highest MMR player in Aftermath.
I think he has the highest peak, yeah.
Extremely strong Zerg and Protoss player, and he's famous for beating Neeb in WCS after telling his strategies to the Twitch chat.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Go look up the Reddit there if you haven't seen it. It's hilarious. He was like, hey, in game 1 I'm going to do this, game 2 I'm going to do this, chat's moving so fast no one's going to see it. And he did those two things and won both games. I mean, it was hilarious.
That was great.
But we're lucky to have him along at launch. So yeah, we have 3 solid, I think, active players, and then we have kaRmy with his great wisdom and pro gaming experience in the RTS space to
I'll be
really
support.
kick things off.
Yeah, I definitely won't be a pro player, even close to it. I'll play the hell out of that game. I think I could get like, I don't know if they have the same levels. I'll have master, maybe mid to high master if it carries over. But yeah, I'm just excited to get that rolling. Disappointed we don't have our keys yet, but that's okay. We'll get them eventually.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get keys one day.
Yeah, because we know we'll be the best.
I cry
support.
myself to sleep every night.
We don't get them. Yep.
Literally, I whine to kaRmy like once a day over Discord, like, damn, no key yet.
Yeah, damn, no key. That's okay. We'll
and
get
you
one.
said you were blocking every email that comes or unsubscribing to every email that isn't from Stormgate.
Yeah, when you were here visiting and we're like sitting beside each other, like just working on stuff, I'd get a notification on my phone from an email. I'm like, oh, is that it? And then it's like, no, here's advertising, some dumb shit. I'm like, nope, your company's dead to me now, and I just unsubscribe. Yeah, bad time to be doing that. But anyways, Derek, we've been going on almost an hour now. I think it's a good time to wrap it up for our first episode here. We had a lot of good stuff to talk about. Looking forward to everything coming down the pipeline. A lot of good stuff in the RTS space, which is obviously our area of expertise and passion. So I think the next coming years for Aftermath is going to be incredibly exciting. And I think the esports scene is in very big need of what's come with the RTS space coming forward. But this is our first episode of many. We are going to be doing this on a lot more frequent basis, especially once Stormgate becomes a more full-time open game. We'll be doing this every week, strictly about Stormgate. So if you're watching, you want to keep up with Stormgate news, everything RTS related, and just general esports insider sort of opinions, feel free to follow us on all different socials, wherever you can hear podcasts. We'll have this thing live as well as on YouTube. And yeah, stay tuned and we'll keep pumping out the good content. You have any final contents? You have anything you want to say before you close it out?
I think we covered a lot of good stuff today. I'm looking forward to the future of Stormgate, Aftermath, the podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm glad you made it here. And yeah, like I said, first of many. So everybody take care of yourselves and we will see you again in the future.